Hello again, part 3 of my story. Hopefully, this time we'll get through the majority of it. I won't waste any time going straight into it. So, right after we had all these things happen with Child Protective Services, uh, God blessed us immensely after that time in our lives. And I was again pregnant and had my third son, whose name is Micah. And the pregnancy and everything went extremely well through this particular time. And then shortly after he was born, I became pregnant again. And it happened very quickly, probably about 6 months after I'd had Micah, I became pregnant. And we had chosen at this particular time in our lives that we wanted to trust God because He had brought us through an immense and difficult time. And He just really convicted us that we can trust Him with everything, including our children and our family size. And so we did. We chose to trust God. Now, just to say, I have a lot of health problems, and which prevent me from taking certain steps to prevent pregnancy. But we still, in our decision and in our lot of prayer, not that we were going to just trust God. And I won't go into a whole lot of detail of that, but so I became pregnant again with Micah, had him. Shortly after that, I got pregnant again, and 8 weeks into the pregnancy, I had a miscarriage. We had an ultrasound and had seen the baby's heartbeat, and everything was fine at 8 weeks. Went back at 10 weeks, and there was no longer a heartbeat, and the baby had passed away. It was devastating. And like I just said, we had made this decision that we were going to trust God with the children that we had in the size of our family. And to have a miscarriage just made me feel like, did we do the wrong thing? You know, what did we do wrong? Why is God punishing us? And it was just a lot of feelings went through, a lot of emotion. It was very difficult. And other people who have had miscarriages can understand that it's not easy. It's something that is very difficult. And it was one of my biggest fears, was losing a child. And even though the child was only 8 weeks old, it's still a child, and it's still a loss, and it was hard. And again, I got pregnant again shortly after that miscarriage, and 4 weeks into that pregnancy, I miscarried again. And this was definitely devastating. I just remember crying and just not understanding what was going on. And I got angry with God and just really didn't understand it. I prayed, and then I asked God to forgive me for my anger. And but I didn't want to get pregnant again. And I kind of made the decision that I don't want to get pregnant again, and I'm going to do everything I can to not get pregnant again. Because I felt like maybe I was making the wrong decision by trusting God. Well, God had other plans, because even though I was adamant and did not want to get pregnant and took steps to not get pregnant, I still got pregnant with our now fourth child, Jeremiah. And a lot happened in this time frame with our children. So not only was I having miscarriages that happened all at the same time, Nehemiah, my second child, started to show signs of autism, as well as our first child, who had the feeding tubes and all the medical problems that he had, was diagnosed with autism when he was 3 years old. So now I had 2 children that were on the spectrum for autism, and a third child that was an infant, and now I was pregnant with my fourth child. And we didn't have a whole lot of help in the area, and we had, we're military, so a lot of friends that we had moved away, and it was just really rough. We had another false accusation made against us from Child Protective Services, and they came, and it happened the same night that I had my first miscarriage. it was just one thing after another, and just hard and devastating to go through everything that we went through. People don't understand our oldest son and how he's tube fed and he doesn't eat. He looks healthy, and he looks like there's nothing wrong with him. But when you see him not eating or us eating in front of him, you don't understand that he's getting fed. It's going through a feeding tube, and there's a lot of misunderstandings about feeding tubes, and that's why we have, Feeding Tube Awareness Week, and there's a great video that I posted called Elijah's Movie, and it just is all about Elijah and feeding tubes, so please check that out. But back to the story, I want to try to briefly go through some of the things. So after I had Jeremiah, I began to experience a lot of medical problems myself. I had my white blood cell counts were dropping, my red blood cell counts were off, my vitamin counts were crazy out of whack. I was getting sick constantly. I was sick for 2 years. I had pneumonia twice and bronchitis 14 times, and doctors began to think that I might have either an autoimmune disorder or cancer of some kind. Nobody really knew what was going on and why I was so sick. And it came to find out that I had 2 blood clotting factors, which explained why I had 2 miscarriages. And then I also found out some other medical stuff that I won't go into, but I really had a lot of medical problems, and one of the things that I was diagnosed with was Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a serious condition, and it can be varying degrees with different people. I encourage you to look it up. If you don't know what it is, it's EHLERS/DANLOS. And it causes my body doesn't produce collagen, so I have hypermobile joints, and because my joints have to overwork, it causes me chronic pain. And the pain comes and goes. It's also associated with migraines, dislocations, GI problems, depression and anxiety, and a lot of things, because you have collagen in your entire body, and when it doesn't work properly, it affects multiple organ systems, and that just came to be the defining for a lot of medical problems that I've had throughout my whole life. So now things began to be even more complicated for our family, as our 3rd child also began to show signs of autism. So now, and our 4th child, Jeremiah, also had a minor heart defect and started having feeding problems, and he didn't want to eat. He didn't have the strength to suck properly. And he was basically considered a failure to thrive baby, and plus having the heart defect. So now I had 3 children that were on the spectrum for autism, and a 4th child with a heart defect and feeding problems, along with my oldest child having all of his feeding problems and the feeding tubes and medical issues that he had. So I now have 4 children with special needs. But let me tell you, all of my children are special to me. I love them all, and I would not be the same without them. I'm very thankful for them, and very blessed to have them in my life. But we did have one other child. So I have 5 children, all boys, like I said before. My 5th child is Ezra, and he was born healthy and doing well, but then shortly after he was born, he also just started to show signs of failure to thrive. And at this point, he also has difficulties feeding and may possibly end up needing a feeding tube because he isn't gaining weight like he should. And we're going to try some things and some medication to try to get him to gain weight, and if he doesn't, he may also need a feeding tube. So for those who know or don't know me, please pray for our family. We do have a lot going on. In this time frame, of course, my husband was military, so he's been out to sea multiple times, in and out, and we've had our struggles with our marriage, and it's been rough at certain times, being away from each other for extended periods of time, long working hours. The military life is hard, and then to have 5 children with special needs, it's even more difficult. But the biggest part that I want to share with all of this is that God has done amazing things in our lives. And people hear my story and they just say, I don't know how you can handle having 5 special needs children and your husband being gone all the time, and how do you manage that, and then manage to minister on top of that. It's all God. And I just want all of you to know that no matter how difficult your circumstances may be in life, God is amazing. And ever since He came into my life and was a part of my life, back in Washington State when I truly got saved and accepted Him, He's been with me constantly, and He gives me strength that I couldn't have unless I had Him. And I am human, and I do make mistakes, and it's hard at times, and I did get depression, and I went and I got help. I went and I got counseling. I do take medication, and I'm not ashamed to say that, because going to God, I went to God for 2 years. I had counseling for 2 years. I sought Him, I prayed Him, and He gave me unbelievable strength to deal with everything that I had going on. And He really convicted me in this manner that, you can seek God and you can ask for healing, and sometimes He heals, and sometimes He says, my grace is sufficient for you. And there's nothing wrong with taking medication for depression, and don't let anybody ever tell you that. If you have depression or you feel really sad, go get the help, because not the average person doesn't live with what I live with on a daily basis. Okay? And there are people in different circumstances that you need help, and there's nothing wrong with getting help, and it does not mean that you don't have faith in God. That bothers me more than anything, because I have an immense faith in God, and I believe that He is able to raise the dead, to heal the sick, to heal the blind, and He can do anything and everything that He wants. But each of us goes through circumstances so that we can minister to other people better. And I believe I went through all the things that I went through with my pregnancies and birth and child protective services so that I can better minister to the women that I minister to at the Crisis Pregnancy Center. And I can know what a crisis is like, and I can know what they've been through, and I can understand what a C-section is, and what a miscarriage is, and what it's like to have hardships, what it's like to be in, bad circumstances, and feeling like you don't know how you can carry on with your life anymore. And God has used me in an immense way to be a minister to others. And I just want others to know the love of God, to know the amazing strength that He can give you, to know His love, that it's more important than anything in this world, that He died for you, that He loves you more than anything. It doesn't mean that life gets better or that it's perfect, because sin is in the world and bad things happen. But I am so thankful for my relationship with God and His relationship with me. So now I am doing research. I am looking into the end times, and I feel like we are approaching the end times. It is almost here. It's almost upon us. And I'd like to share that in my Searching for Truth in the End Times page on Facebook and on YouTube as I post my videos. I'm going to continue ministering at the Crisis Pregnancy Center, and I'm going to continue to teach the Bible and what I know and how God has changed my life and impacted my life. Every single day I seek Him and know Him, and I want the power of the Holy Spirit to be there for everybody. For you, I want you to know His love. I want you to have a relationship with Him. And as we face these end times, that we can be in His hands, no matter how bad, no matter how hard things get. So I pray that God would bless you all. Continue to come to my page, and I'll continue to give you more information and share what I know about the love of God. And thank you for listening to my story, and I pray that it blessed you. And if you have any questions, just leave comments, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Thanks all, and God bless.